All the rest of this has been about the teenage textbook, love, all the obviously popular stuff, but there's also war. So welcome to the memorial debate. As some of you may remember, and I do have to admit that it gets harder and harder as the years go by, for as long as one can remember, the SWF debate was one of the major highlights of the Singapore Writers' Festival. It was rowdy, it was contentious, sometimes even scandalous, nothing at all like the real parliamentary debates until recently. And of course, Adrian, who was always one of the anchor speakers of one of the sides, was a major highlight of every single one of those debates. I, of course, was the smart person. I chose always to be the moderator, so there would never be any risk of my being up against Adrian's wit, his charm, and his intellect. Because as we all know, and as you've heard so much, Adrian really always managed to make the most insightful points by humor, by just sometimes maybe making us laugh so hard that we were close to tears, and and then insight would come. And done it all with, he probably hasn't already done that tonight, today, making us laugh and yet keeping us at the edge of tears, because I think for so many of us, the sadness and the tears of missing him will always be leavened by the joy and the laughter of remembering him. In a way, even before we begin this debate, it feels like Adrian's already had the last word, right? His is the absent, present voice that we will always listen to. But having said that, the actual speakers who are here today are nothing to sniff at all. So let me start by introducing them. The left-wing proposition on my left, the three members of the proposition are Colin Goh. Colin Goh, you will all know, is a filmmaker and a satirist who long ago made it Class C to Top Cop, which will come as a great relief to some of the other members of his team, and I am looking at you, Gui. Next to Colin is Mark Nair, who is a poet and a photographer, and he claims that most of his photographs are of his cat, who has a very interesting name, Graham Norton. Those of us who are familiar with Graham, we know who runs the roost in Mark's house, right? And of course, the third speaker of the proposition is Gui Li Sui. Gui, those of you who remember, Gui was in many ways Adrian's sort of arch nemesis in all of these debates. Adrian's team didn't always win, and very often that was because of Gui. Today, Gui is here, he tells me, masquerading as a teenage kopitiam uncle. You'll unravel that as you like. On my right is the opposition, led by their first speaker, Terence Chua. Terence is a deputy public prosecutor, and as a former DPP myself, I know that is a very lonely place to be. And to make things worse, he wants me to assure all of you that unfortunately he cannot fix your parking tickets. Second speaker of the opposition is Joshua Ip. Joshua is a poet. He's the founder of Singlet Station, and if you hate this debate, you can blame it all on him, because he is the mastermind who sort of has brought all of us together. He's done all the hard work to administer this, and we're very grateful to him for that. And certainly last but not least, Benjamin Lee is our third speaker. You probably all know him much better as Mr. Miyagi, and you probably all read his blogs, etc. But he complains that because of that, now he has to spend half his time explaining why he's called Mr. Miyagi, and maybe that's one of the mysteries that we will finally understand this evening. So anyway, tonight the proposition is this House proposes that a writer's memorial be built in honor of Adrian Tan. And to start us off is the first speaker for the proposition, Colin. Go.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, distinguished opponents, ladies, gentlemen, and friends. It is with great sorrow that I stand here today. Why? Because Adrian, a man of great integrity, kindness, talent, and humor, and with a heart as wide as an ocean, left us way too early. It was a case, as my urologist would say, of premature evacuation. But that isn't what I'm upset about. I'm also deeply, deeply saddened that got some Tauka people so fast want to object to building a memorial in honor of Adrian.
Whoa.
You all heard what kind of memorial not? Huh? Not yet, right? Never hear any details yet immediately want to oppose. You all assume it will be some tacky, giant Soviet-style erection. That is what my urologist would call a case of premature evaluation. Why do you assume you'll get some 200-meter tall statue of him wearing that denim jacket he liked to wear when he was in his 20s? What, do you think we'll create some artistic interpretation of Adrian, a human-fish hybrid of him, a mer Adrian, if you will, spitting witticisms outside the Supreme Court, or Haw Villa? Hello. The motion is to build a memorial, not a monument, okay? We are not even suggesting we convert his home into a museum or anything. But oh no, I hear some of you argue, Adrian, he's such a humble man, he wouldn't want some giant thing, he's not some megalomaniac. And yet, I would say to you, hello. This is a man who wrote a series of essays, almost all of which ended with, "If I were king of Singapore." If Aming the orangutan has a statue, why shouldn't Adrian come? Stamford Raffles spent only 8 months in Singapore, yet he has 2 statues. Adrian was clearly a man with an outsized imagination who made an outsized contribution to Singapore literature. Okay, he deserves an outsized memorial, whatever form that may take. He wrote a book, a textbook some more, that thousands of teens actually paid money to read. There should be a first edition displayed under glass at the Ministry of Education for all curriculum people to see. See, a textbook can be enjoyable. And he also performed another miracle with his "If I Were King of Singapore" essays. He actually made me read LinkedIn. So to me, this isn't some intellectual exercise. I personally believe Adrian deserves some memorial so that generations to come will at least be curious enough, to look him up, access his work. Why? Because it might spark something, as he did in me. Back in 1987, when I was still in junior college, I won a cartooning contest and a gig to do a daily comic strip in that bastion of journalistic innovation called the New Paper. Okay? In 1989, my strips were collected into a special edition to which I added a whole bunch of new artwork and text. So, can you imagine the thrill for this Seaginer to see his nonsense collected in print for the first time? And not only that, actually selling. It would turn out to be, as my urologist might say, a case of premature exhilaration. Because the organization that owned the newspaper said they were entitled to all my royalties of the book because I had signed them ownership to all my intellectual property. So, thanks, kid. It was pocket change to them, but it was huge to me. And when I remonstrated, they relented with a, okay lah, I'll give you a bit, because, as my urologist would say, see you small. So, I was quite down when I first met Adrian in person. It was at some photo shoot for the sort of young Turks of local publishing, okay? I knew Adrian's younger brother, Edmund, from ACS, but not the famous teenage textbook author himself. And when I cowpaid about my situation to him, he immediately volunteered to look at my contract and see if he could help. I had never thought of consulting a lawyer. It would have involved money I didn't have, and other press folks told me there was no way out. Sorry, they're too big, and you are ikan bilis, accept it. So I had zero hope over coffee when Adrian flipped through my contract, and all he said was, "When's your date of birth?" And when I told him, he smiled and said, "Congrats, you signed it when you were a minor, it's null and void." So Adrian then gave me some advice to renegotiate my terms, and the paper was not happy, but by then I had, quite a following, so they agreed. I got all my royalties, and for some time I was the only freelance cartoonist to completely own the IP. Yeah. So thanks to Adrian, I also learned I didn't have to be just one thing in life, okay? And so I decided to become a lawyer too. After I moved to New York and after making my film Singapore Dreaming, I bumped into Adrian again late one night, of all places, in Maxwell Road Hawker Center. I told him I was thinking of coming back into practice because I really wanted stability. As you heard Philip's talk just now, filmmaking is really hard and heartbreaking. And Adrian very quickly told me, stick with it. You're living everyone's dream. You're living my dream. I said, what? You dream of being poor? And he said, you are suffering, but you are suffering for what you are creating and not for solving other people's problems. And despite my gloom and fatigue, I knew in my heart he was right. So yes, I'm not going to persuade all of you with some, impeccable logic about why a memorial for Adrian should be constructed. Because I heck care what you all think. Okay? Because I'll personally push for a memorial for him. I don't know what form it will take yet. Okay? A plaque, annual series of debates, or even, I don't know, a teenage 10-year series. headed, Adrian Tan presents Macam Stanley. Okay? And don't give me crap about what he would or wouldn't have wanted. He's not some minister mentor. He's the king of Singapore. So yes, finally, I would say Adrian Tan deserves a memorial. As my proctologist would say, this motion must pass.
Thank you, Colin, for starting the debate off rousingly. And now, I pass the floor, not in the sense of Colin's proctologist, to the first speaker of the opposition, Terence.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, fellow debaters, ladies, gentlemen, and those of us who know better. You'll forgive me if I'm a little nervous because I'm following freaking Colin Goh. And it's tough enough to face an audience which I have to argue against the motion without sounding like a complete dick. So today, we're talking about a writer's memorial to Adrian Tan, a man known for his good humor, his earnestness, his honest observations, and for being able to milk decades of fame out of 2 books that he tossed off 30 years ago. Well played. But even so, I find myself wondering what kind of memorial would even be appropriate for Adrian. Because I agree, we don't want some plaque stuck in some corner of a building saying Adrian Tan.
We don't want that.
Yeah, we don't want that either.
We definitely don't want that.
Adrian Tan, drink coffee here. That nobody will read or just take pictures like that, or think that he will be interviewed by CPIB. Okay? And of course, as I said, we don't want to keep explaining that this is Adrian Tan, who was a lawyer, as opposed to Adrian Lim, who desperately needed one. So, I think better than what even Colin said, we need to go big, right? We need white marble, gigantic stature, 5 meters tall, typewriter balanced in one hand like rugby ball, quill in the other extended towards the Merlion or Tampines JC, whatever. And with teenage fans grabbing at his ankles shouting, "Notice me, senpai!" And an interactive hologram maybe, powered by ChatGPT, dispensing love advice, which is also appropriate because, like all lawyers, ChatGPT is great at making things up when it doesn't know what it's talking about. But most of all, a puzzled expression on his face as he's wondering what the hell this is for. You remember that face, right? Those frozen eyebrows, the gormless look, that slightly panicked deer caught in headlights expression. I miss that face very much. It was so punchable. Because the Adrian I know, and for now I still find myself speaking about him in the present tense, he would be both touched by the fuss being made about him and also appalled, equally appalled at it. Not that he doesn't deserve this, not that he thought that he didn't deserve this, but more like, hey, you all should really be doing something a bit more practical. And I keep thinking, maybe we don't need a memorial. Because, like Christopher Wren, we just have to look around us. It's already here, in the hearts and the memories of everyone who was ever touched by him. Touched by his words, I must clarify.
Prosecutor, man. Prosecutor. Yeah.
Objection.
No police reports have been filed, as far as I know. So maybe instead of putting money into building a physical memorial, we should be thinking about something that extends his legacy. I'm actually partial to the idea of the Adrian Tan Literary Prize for most sarcastic comment that will get you a Poffman notice. Because I think that's a badge of honor that's worth earning. Or you can have your best humor story, humor book, whatever, if you're feeling boring. But the point is that we should have something that, like Adrian, doesn't take life all that seriously. Because in today's world, God knows we need some of that. And because our monuments crumble and become vast and trunkless legs of stone standing in the desert, encouraging humor and creativity is essential and eternal. Sorrow shared is halved. That's why we're here. Laughter shared is doubled. And that's why we're here. And that's also how we tell death to piss off. And that's how we should remember Adrian. Thank you.
Thank you, Terence. The battle is joined, and I'm going to ask Mark Nair, second speaker for the proposition, to come up. And I hope he's not going to be the first winner of the Adrian Tan Prize for most sarcastic comment that gets us a Puffman notice.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Colin, for setting the stage, setting it on fire, actually, and my esteemed opposition, Terence. I thought I was second prop. I thought maybe now I'm third prop. It kind of felt like you were, asking for a memorial in your different forms. So I'm kind of confused, but never mind. I will try my best to add on to what you have said in favor of us. I mean, should a writer's memorial be built in honor of Adrian Tan? Absolutely. The only question is, when you hold it, I can hold it. The only question is what form it should take. So I've always admired the angle of approach to various topics that Adrian has written about. The points he makes are eminently logical, even obvious upon reading, but behind the distillation lies a whole machinery of quick wit and searing intelligence. But not just that. There is great kindness and hope in his words. So in thinking about this word memorial, maybe it helps for us to come at it etymologically. In English, a memorial is defined as a statue or structure to remind us of someone. In Greek, merimna, care, thought. In Latin, memor, mindful. In Welsh, marth, sadness. In Dutch, mitchmeren, to ponder. And all of us here know the value of Adrian's words and stories and his larger-than-life presence in boardroom and on stage, but does Singapore care? And is it logical to expect people to? The artist has always been a bit of an odd animal here in Singapore, tolerated, sometimes celebrated or accessorized, but often non-essentialized. Until that is, we feel a sole gap in our pragmatic processes and affective lack of rendering experience into engaging narratives and ideas. Also known as when we demand a PowerPoint deck to explain an abstract installation. Many artists do not make art for money, they make for meaning. And when they leave us, as Adrian did, is it enough to remember them by the copious archival materials they have donated to NLB? Or to stage a posthumous retrospective of their life work? What about something more tangible, a memorial, a building, anything that lasts longer than JCube? But do we need to build a new edifice for this memorial? Maybe we could co-opt some of our black and white bungalows. The ones not currently occupied by our ministers. Right? Because where my minister lives is not for me to whine. It's their money, not mine. Just what have I achieved? It's there in black and white, on good authority. There's no complicity. The rental rate's just right. Redoubtable and true. No need to raise a flag. The roofs have been repaired. They are here to serve you. Apologies for the rhyming digression, but you know what they say about poetry, that it makes nothing happen. So we need, in the time-honored tradition of our civil servants, to put forth a white paper stating the criteria for memorials. For example, how will writers qualify? Could it be based on how many copies have been sold of a work? Then we may not get any memorials for poets. It'll be children's book authors and Neil Humphreys. Or how many books a writer has published? Okay, so Rick Kobach's song has over 40 books. And objectively speaking, that's a lot. So maybe he'll get a memorial the size of VivoCity. However, given our constraints for land space, we should really think about how large each memorial should be. But maybe we could locate it in the scenic rolling hills of Tuas. Cannot lah. The army got there first. Okay, we can erect a condo, call it Out of Print Heights. There'll be little niches for people to come and pay their respects and leave. Oh wait, actually, we call those columbariums, right? Okay, no, let's go underground instead. We can have a sprawling network of man-made subterranean passageways with side recesses that contain the remains of... Actually, those are catacombs. Okay, let's be true to our nature as Singaporeans. Let's go digital. Let's have an app, like One Service. After all, Singaporeans excel at feedback about overflowing rubbish bins, mosquitoes, and illegal parking. So why not a note of thanks after we read a great book? We can call it Compassion Arts. Or maybe we're just thinking too small. Maybe we shouldn't just have a memorial or even a street of memorials. Let's have an estate, celebrating how a band of small but dedicated individuals have held out for years, placing their cause before themselves, shaping their words, agitating for change in small but significant ways. Oh wait, that's Hougang. If Adrian did become King of Singapore, I'm sure he would have wanted Singlet to become a mainstay of people's lives. The talking about Sunny Liu or Boy Kim Cheng's books are as normal as talking about parliament flings and GST hikes. And while we can have a robust discussion about the former, the latter is just like the weather, something to be endured, and nothing we should ever memorialize. But for Adrian, yes, I propose let's build a memorial in front of Scape, a pair of carved concrete slabs facing each other. One slab is called textbook and the other workbook. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much, Mark. And now to respond, perhaps in rhyming poetry. I'm sure you're up to it. Joshua Ip.
All right, good afternoon, fellow friends and fans of Adrian Tan. I need to open my phone. In the spirit of the teenage textbook and this humble post-it note, I must talk about the 3 M's of Adrian Tan. First and foremost, Adrian, too modest for a memorial. And I know, he said already, King of Singapore, yeah, but King only. Shareholder equity under $500 million. Not eligible to be president. This is what Collins urologists would call electoral dysfunction. But hear me out. Adrian did his work often with no expectation of recognition or reward, which is a concept very familiar to writers. He came from humble beginnings, never forgot to give back to the common man. Self-effacing humor was part of his identity. I mean, he masqueraded as Aunt Agony, as Adam Wong, published Dear Adam Help, which is the source of the term you wouldn't know him from Adam. So honestly, if Adrian Tan was alive to see this monument to Adrian Tan, he would be the first to make a joke about it. Even when cameoing in his own movie, he appears under a famous writer sign in Borders, with absolutely no one paying attention to him. He was completely comfortable laughing at himself. So can we please don't outrage his modesty? He was too modest for a memorial. Number 2, too magnanimous for a memorial. So we've heard already, Singapore Association of Visually Handicapped, Advocates for the Arts, Arts House Limited, Maxwell Chambers, volunteering. In the middle of his cancer treatment, he found time to squeeze out a chapter of original writing for a Tan Tock Seng book that Eking put together just a few months ago. When I founded Singlet Station, he was one of the first persons I called for advice, even though he only knew me as a random debater. And over the years, I've asked him again and again for help. He's always given pro bono, always saying yes again and again. And just 6 months ago, I actually asked him because some migrant writers were in trouble with a large organization. His answer was the usual, I don't like seeing people get bullied. And this was just a few months back. He came forward. Adrian was always giving, always speaking out for people, advocating for people and cats and other highly evolved life forms. I've always seen him as Singapore's conscience in a way. And you think about it, how do you have a memorial for conscience? Is it going to be like that? Or like that? Cannot. I was reading an article by him where he said that lawyers and authors are cut from the same cloth, fundamentally. They are advocates. They speak out for others. They enable others to tell their stories. So I would honor Adrian by action rather than object, by serving other people rather than conserving him like some fossil figure or antique chamber pot. We should continue this legacy of helping Singaporeans tell stories and advocate for Singaporeans and their stories by service and doing good rather than procuring a good that will require servicing. So, third point, too memorable for a memorial. So I think my colleagues have tried to imagine a memorial that's fitting enough for Adrian Tan, right? But come on now, plaque, prize, readout wrote, slightly used. What's this PLJC nonsense? Lawyer trying to be writer, is it? Nothing you have imagined stands up to my memory of Adrian Tan. Let me put it another way. If you've watched SWF for the last decade or so, you'll realize the debate always ends with Gui, who talks complete nonsense. Or Adrian, who will talk lagi complete nonsense. By virtue of being the person in the room with the greatest mastery over the turns and the twists of the English language, Adrian always has the last word. Would you dare to try and usurp that with a lump of stone or a hunk of metal? And this will go very badly, you know. Either you do the Ang Moh style, but the statue is very realistic, then you end up with NUS students rubbing your leg during exam season for good luck. Or because this is Singapore, minor shitting on your head also is good luck. Or you can do the postmodern artist representation. Adrian is some like woo-woo flappy installation, or planted into a Vanda Miss Joaquim, or minted into an NFT, or some nonsense. Do you trust a modern artist to represent Adrian correctly? You sure or not? You sure or not? Let's remember Adrian as he was. Nobody wants to see Chong Kai with a midlife crisis, or Mui after 3 divorces, Thomas D. Cruz saggy in the middle, or CC Song with Botox. No lah. Let's remember Adrian as he was. In our memory, in his voice, and in his books, and as he always will be. Modest, magnanimous, memorable, His Majesty. And because I am his public servant, I must leave you with 3 quotes. A man is not dead while his name is still spoken. Terry Pratchett. They say you die twice. One time when you stop breathing, and the second time, a bit later on, when someone says your name for the last time. Banksy. And third, for where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them. Matthew 18:20. So I believe that if we say his name 3 times, like Jesus Christ or Beetlejuice, Adrian will be here with us. Can we try this out? Our 1, 2, 3, then you want Adrian now. 1, 2, 3. Adrian, Adrian, Adrian. Ladies and gentlemen, Adrian is alive. There is no need for a memorial.